Hello, 1301. I wanted to go over the Walker Percy questions for your fourth paper. If you're good, at the end, I might show you the most valuable possession in my house. You'll like that. Terry Funk wore it. But yeah, the questions at first glance look difficult, but once you read Percy, listen to me, start understanding his point, I think this might be the easiest paper to write. It might be the one you like the most as well. The first one to me asks about his writing style, which is stream of consciousness, example after example. I've got to assume most things you read in literature, at least American literature, Western literature, you pick up the reading, and the point is, don't smoke cigarettes. Okay, I got the moral, I'll write it. Percy isn't like that. He goes, one example, Grand Canyon, another example, starfish, seashell, museum protests, and he makes his point example by example after example. There's not one main idea. I guess there is an idea, but he doesn't hit you over the head with his point. You grab hold of his example that you like the best. To me, that's more realistic. It's more how real people talk. It's how you talk. It's how your friends talk. But a stream of consciousness writing style. And not telling you what to write, but it's real. When someone tells you a real story, it means a little more to you than if it's just a lecture in a book, a moral in a book. Question number 2 asks about what is lost, what is it? I talk about that a little in your other lecture about the actual text, about you being sovereign, about you being the king, you being the queen. If all day long you go to class, the teacher yells at you, teacher tells you what to do, you go to work, your boss tells you what to do, your mom tells you what to do, you have to pay your bills, whatever, all day long you're just following, you're not leading. I think Walker Percy, maybe because he was in that car accident and woke up from a coma, wants you to be king of your own castle, queen of your own castle. There might be a Seinfeld joke in there if you watch Seinfeld. But you be sovereign. When you walk into the room, you're there too. When you walk into English 1301 face-to-face class, what you think is just important as what the teacher thinks. You paid your money. Show your individualism, be yourself, talk, be engaged, especially on the subjects that matter to you, that are interesting to you. So what is lost is your sovereignty. If all day long your head is down and you let people yell at you, you're not sovereign. I think Walker Percy wants you to take control of your own life, be motivated. Again, a little like Richard Rodriguez in the first essay. The third question asks, it's a shorter question, why there's no first-person accounts in his stories, no experts. And again, when we do reading, we're expecting the expert to tell us what to do, so we take notes on it. If there's going to be a test, we go back, what's the point? What's the point? Okay, I'll write it down. And then when there's a test, you spit it back to the professor. But you're not necessarily engaged, you're not necessarily alive. I think Walker Percy's story with 20 different examples with no experts, it's supposed to be real, but it's also supposed to be anti-expert. Real people in real time make mistakes, fall down, get back up, light bulb goes on. So ultimately, I think he's going for realism. You're sovereign. You find out what's important for you. I think the fourth question is going to be the most popular because basically for question number 4, you tell your own story. He tells a story about the Grand Canyon, about the corn dance, about finding a seashell on the beach. You would tell your own story. Maybe you went on vacation to New York and you discovered something about the world. Maybe in the classroom, in geometry class, you didn't get it, you hated it, and then you went to see your professor in the afternoon and you were working on something and you got it. There was a story from Kent State. It's naughty. I'm going to pull my punches. But there was a kid in this class. I taught at Kent State, and he just didn't get it. He didn't turn in any of the work. He didn't really even get college, I don't think. And the best weekend to be at Kent State is Halloween. Like, everyone goes crazy. Again, it's naughty. I'm not going to break it out in much detail. But old school, it was a big party. And the kid went out that weekend. We were reading Walker Percy, and he got arrested. He spent the night in jail. And that's bad. You know, I'm sure his mom didn't like it. But in that jail cell, in his mind, like the tumblers clicked. He was in college. It was Halloween. He was wearing a costume. He was living the college life. And he had a good time. And he came into class on Monday morning and raised his hand, told the class he got arrested, but that he understood Walker Percy. He was living his life. He was at college. It was Halloween. And that kid wrote every essay. He got an A in the class because I think maybe because of Walker Percy, because Halloween, he went out, lived the college life. And again, like, don't be naughty. But for number 4, tell a story from your life that connects to Walker Percy. A moment when the light bulb went on for you and you lived your life. You had fun. It doesn't have to be a positive story. It can be a negative story. But ultimately, tell a story where you're sovereign, you're king, you're queen, your head isn't down like a lemming taking it. You're alive. And again, I think that'll be a popular question. Number 5, in my mind, ask about complex versus common tourists. A lot of times Percy will make an example between teachers and students and tour guides and tourists. He asks what a tourist is. And like in my, tourist has a fanny pack. Tourist takes pictures. Tourist does what the tour guide says. And you have to wonder in class, are you a tourist? You go to 1301 face-to-face the first day. Do you do what the teacher says? Do you take notes? You agree with whatever the teacher says? Or do you raise your hand if you disagree? Do you raise your hand and tell a story? And you let the teacher know, you let the class know that you're there. Sometimes in my face-to-face classes, I'll give an example. We go on a field trip to Dallas, and I'm talking, and a beautiful stranger comes up and says, hey, come with me to this party. And I ask my face-to-face students, do you leave with that beautiful stranger, or do you stay with the tour group? Could be the most wonderful day. You could fall in love. You could get married. Or, that stranger could be a serial killer. And I know it's 2020. You have to be careful. But yeah, ultimately, like, my point is, do you go off with that beautiful stranger, or do you stay with the tour guide, take pictures, go to lunch, be safe? And in that example, you don't always have to do the wildest, craziest thing. Maybe when you're 18, you're learning the ropes, you're figuring life out. As a student, maybe it's better to do what the teacher says until you get your feet wet, until you understand. As a student, maybe it's better to stay with the tour than to go off with a beautiful stranger. But as you get older, you experience more things, you learn more things. I think maybe he's suggesting that the best course of action is being common complex. Sometimes it's better to stay with the group. Every once in a while, if you're feeling it, if you're alive and free, you go off with a beautiful stranger. So number 5 is about common traveler tourist versus a complex traveler tourist. Okay. Oh, I forgot to show you The most valuable possession in my house is the NWA World Championship belt. Old school. This is the belt that Terry Funk from Amarillo Double Cross Ranch would have worn in 1976. Okay, bye.